Hello everyone, my name's Andrew Lawson and I'm a lecturer at the law school at UNE, and I'm also a researcher and Deputy Director of the Australian Centre for Agriculture and Law, or AgLaw Centre for short, which is a research centre attached to the law school in the Faculty of Science, Agriculture, Business and Law at UNE. And today I'm talking with my PhD student, Jane Gudde. Hello Jane.
Hi there, hello.
Jane recently presented her work at the International Conference on the Regulation of Ag-Vet Chemicals and Technologies, Ag-Vet meaning agricultural and veterinary chemicals and technologies, and that conference was held at UNE, and it was supported by the AgLaw Centre and a number of other schools and divisions around UNE. Jane, can we start by asking what inspired you to do a PhD at the AgLaw Centre at UNE?
Well, Andrew, thanks for that question. I had been working in natural resource governance and in Australian agriculture for quite a while, and I had also just been working on a legislation development project with the state government. So I was already working in that area of agricultural land management and the governance of it. And I was really interested in doing this work on certification for sustainable agriculture. I found that the AgLaw Centre at UNE was really the only institution that I could find that where I could do that project and where there were appropriate supervisors who were working in that field already.
Fantastic. That sounds really good. It's interesting, before I came to this interview, I was a bit peckish and I had to get my afternoon pick-me-up, get a chocolate bar. And it so happens on the back of this chocolate bar, it says, when you buy this particular brand, you're helping to make life better for cocoa farmers in Cote d'Ivoire and Ecuador. We source 100% UTZ certified sustainable cocoa to create a brighter future. And if you look on the back, there's a little mark, a certification mark as well. And I know that that's right on point with your PhD project. It's got a bit of a academic sounding title, Agricultural Sustainability Assurance Schemes in Australia, Achieving Legitimacy and Effectiveness. Can you simplify that for us a bit? What's your project about? And can you give us a flavour of the type of schemes and programs that are out there in Australia for sustainable agriculture?
Okay, that's a big question. Now, to start with, an agricultural sustainability assurance scheme is really just a system of guaranteeing that something has been produced sustainably. So typically these schemes have a set of standards or rules, and then they check the compliance with those rules and standards. So that's kind of the bare bones of it. There's a lot else that they do, but that's really how they guarantee sustainability. Without getting into the definition of sustainability, which is another whole question, we can think of these schemes as rule-making systems, as a government is, but without the democratic backing of that a government has. And what that means then is that there are questions about how legitimate it is that they're making rules for people. Now, that's some of the questions, but basically my project is also about what do people expect in terms of legitimacy, like what actually makes a scheme credible to the consumers, the producers who sign up to it, and everybody else in the community. And really the idea was to help schemes to plan their operations so that they can enhance their credibility. Now, here we see just a selection of the schemes that are operating in Australia, and they vary quite a bit. Some for a single industry, like, for example, the forest industry there, or the fisheries industry. Others are across a number of industries, like the organic labels or the certified land management, those ones. Another difference is whether they're assessing only one issue like water or climate, or whether they're assessing across the whole range of sustainability issues. And another difference is that sometimes the standards target the behaviour of producers or their practices, their on-farm practices. Other ones set targets, and some also use a risk-based assessment process where they just assess where the risks are to sustainability and then try to improve behaviour around those risks. Does that answer your question?
Yes, very interesting. Thanks a lot. Jane, let's imagine I'm doing my shopping. I'm at Coles or Woolies or the farmers markets or a specialty grocery shop, and I really want to support sustainable agriculture, and I might even be willing to pay a price premium if I knew I was going to get a sustainably produced product. How can I be sure that I get what I pay for, and what value do these types of assurance schemes that you've mentioned, what value do they add in that whole process?
Well, for a start, I would say that they do add value, because any scheme at all which aims to improve sustainability will be adding some value. And in general, the schemes are pretty trustworthy. They have good systems in place. Now, as a consumer, you may have a certain idea of sustainability which you're looking for. And what the question is whether you can assess which ones of these schemes, which labels, will most meet your ideas of sustainability. Now, to do that, you probably should be just either going to the product website, looking up the QR code when you're in the supermarket even, and seeing what kinds of practices they have and whether that fits with what you expect. The other real advantage of the schemes is that they give out information about what they do, and there are quite a few indicators of how legitimate or effective, credible these schemes are, around which you can assess yourself from the websites of the schemes. Things like mainly transparency, how much information do they put up there, and there are other indicators. But when you talk about transparency, the two things which you might be most interested in are what exactly are the requirements, so that's the standards or the rules, and how do they assess it? There are different ways that they can assess compliance with those rules. For instance, they might use a third-party auditor, or the scheme itself might audit the producer. Those kinds of questions are important in terms of whether the schemes really fit with what you're expecting.
Very interesting and very topical to the sort of consumer sentiments that we're seeing trend in Australia and elsewhere around the world. Jane, what stage are you up to in this project?
Well, it's exciting. I'm just about to go out and start some interviews with various stakeholders, particularly producers and scheme managers, people from the schemes themselves, to get some idea of how they think that their legitimacy is enhanced. Later on, I'll also be talking to government representatives because there is a role or potential roles for government in helping schemes to maintain their credibility in the marketplace. And I would also like, if I have time and if I can, to talk to consumer groups like Choice or some of the other consumer groups in Australia.
Fascinating. And we look forward to the results.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. I do too. It will be really interesting. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Nice to speak to you, Jane. And bye for now.
Bye.